If oxytocin has all these great effects, then why isn't it more widely known? Why isn't it more widely used? Okay. Why isn't it more widely known? My guess would be is that the gym bros like me and you are not seeing full results from it due to its extremely short half-life. In the blood, it only lasts for 2 to 8 minutes. And there are other delivery methods that can stretch that out. In fact, at the end, if you stick around, I'm going to reveal 3 potential methods that may yield a very long-acting, or at least a longer-acting, in some case, oxytocin. I always thought that oxytocin was just basically the love drug or the love peptide until one of my customers reached out to me and brought up that it has some anabolic properties. It's something that I'd never looked into. My mind was completely blown by just how much is out there about the anabolic, fat burning, heart protecting, vasodilating, blood glucose managing, muscle growing, fat losing, limousine riding, jet flying.
And I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
Powers, okay? So it does all kinds of things. What I wanted to focus on, actual human trials where they showed increased muscle mass. So what this one is here, intranasal oxytocin improves lean muscle mass and lowers LDL cholesterol in older adults with sarcopenic obesity. And it's a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. They prepared a intranasal spray at 24 IU per dose and a dose 4 times per day. Why don't people know about this? Well, gym bros aren't getting the results that they might see on a study like this because they're not preparing it in a nasal spray. With a nasal spray, you're going to dose it 4 times a day. With an injection, you're going to inject maybe twice a day. And some people would inject 5-6 times a day and be fine with it, but most would not. So I think that there's not enough time in the system to see the effects. So I sat down, like I said, and came up with some solutions to that, which I'll discuss. Where are the results? Where are the human trials? And where is the muscle gains at? So this is figure 1 in this study. Is pretty interesting. It shows change in lean mass, so by grams, so lean body mass. So we can say this is muscle. It may not be protein tissue. It might be a combination of protein, carbohydrate, and fluid, that sort of thing, but it's not fat mass. And the oxytocin group over the course of those 8 weeks gained 1,000 grams, so 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds of lean body mass. Sounds good to me. The placebo group lost 0.2 kilograms, so 200 grams. So what is that, roughly half a pound or so? So they lost half a pound of muscle. So this is the oxytocin and placebo groups. I'm not going to get into the difference and all this over here. I'm just going to get down to the simplicity of how much muscle was gained and lost, how much fat was gained and lost by each group. This is positive or negative, and then it's oxytocin, placebo, positive or negative. So down here at the bottom, we see fat mass in kilograms. The oxytocin group, over the course of the 8 weeks, lost 0.2 kilograms of fat. They gained 1 kilogram, as we just said, so 2.2 pounds of muscle. The placebo group lost 0.1 kilograms of fat, but they also lost 0.2 kilograms of muscle. So the oxytocin group lost twice as much fat and gained muscle, so way better on the muscle. So just to give you an idea of some of the possibilities, and these are not people going to the gym, taking protein powder, creatine, TRT, anything of the sort. So we're talking about something that works through a different pathway than the main just attack on the androgen receptor. This is something that's doing some nutrient partitioning. Fair bit of cholesterol lost, the LDL, LDL, up to 20 milligrams per deciliter average loss of LDL, and HDL actually up a little bit. So very interesting results, and I don't think they go into it here. I think actually this study here, the New Frontier in Oxytocin Physiology, the oxytonic contraction, this is another great article. I'll have all of these linked below, but this gets into all the different things that oxytocin may have an effect on, and one of the things that's talked about is soothing and reducing the inflammation of smooth muscle tissue. So like our heart, it's very heart protective, prevents it from actually growing and getting that so much of that athlete's heart and some of those effects. So there are oxytocin receptors in different areas of our body. From what I understand, it just attaches itself to the surface and activates. So it has a lot of effects in a lot of different areas, according to the literature. So I've got mine on order. And so I'll talk about real quick some of the different ways that oxytocin could be made truly effective as we can purchase it now, okay? Well, not as we can purchase it now, but we can purchase it now in a powdered form. The point is you can get online, go onto Google or wherever you want to go and type in research purposes only. You know, if this is the type of thing that you are engaged in researching, of course with the proper credentials, why not? And it's essentially $22 a month plus shipping for a 5 milligram supply. And let's do the conversions real quick so we'll know what kind of numbers we're working with here. So this study that I mentioned, they used 24 IUs 4 times a day for 8 weeks. That was their dose, and it was an intranasal spray. So I'm going to transfer that over to a sublingual dose of the same amount. I'll have to look into it, but I think sublingual and intranasal, we have similar absorption rates as long as the actual milligram amount isn't super high. And I've also got 2 possibilities for a extended release injectable. It's going to sound crazy at first, but you follow me on this. So we're going to aim for this amount. This is what the study used. This is where we're going to start. This was the same thing I did with ecdysterone and some of the different things. I'll never sell oxytocin unless it becomes legal over the counter in this country, but it's not. So that's why I'm explaining to you all the ins and outs of it so you can make an educated decision for yourself, and also so that you can make any modifications on your own, because I will not be doing it for you. So, number one, if we want to make a sublingual form of this, we're going to have to complex it. We don't have to, but the problem with oxytocin, it's a peptide. So all peptides, once you put them in liquid, become very unstable. So they can be destabilized by heat, by motion. So what I would like to do is, first off, if I was going to make myself a preparation of this, what I would do is they were able to complex insulin with hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin. I have a lot of hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin, so that's convenient. And insulin is heat sensitive. Well, so is oxytocin. So what we're going to do is we're going to minimize the exposure to heat. The method that I use is essentially heating in a sealed container. So if you have a magnetic stirrer, I'll throw up something showing what that is. For about $50, you can get one. Or if you have a very sensitive some way to set your temperature specifically to where you know you're really keeping your liquid temperature at a certain amount. You set that at between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius, and you get your water portion up to heat. In this case, we're going to complex it with hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin. So I'm not doing the math for you right now because I haven't done all this, but just theoretically, what you would do is set aside a distilled water portion with hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin in it, and I'm going to recommend 4 times the weighted dose, so 4 times as much as what you have for oxytocin. And the oxytocin you can solubilize in glycerin, vegetable glycerin. If you want something that just tastes sweet, a little bit neutral, it's a natural solvent. So solubilize your oxytocin in a little bit of vegetable glycerin. It'll actually cause it to be a little more stable because of the gel in the first place. Save that aside, get your water and your hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin up to temp on your stirrer or your heating surface. And then once it is fully up to temp, at 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, add in your solvent and your target, which is oxytocin. Make sure you continue to stir or use a magnetic stir with a stir bar. Keep that moving, keep that heat where it's supposed to be, don't let it go too high, and keep your time to 1.5 hours to 2 hours of stirring that and heating that. So after about 2 hours for a small batch, it's done what it can do. I don't think with a small batch like a person might use, there would be any need to go 8 hours or something like that. Also, all of this equipment can be bought on Amazon. So, magnetic stir if you need it. Hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin, Amazon. I get mine in bulk, but you can buy it on Amazon for 100 grams for $30. That'll last you quite a while. So that's method number one. You cook that for 2 hours. And if you like, you can actually add a little bit of sodium caprate, which you'd have to hunt down, or black pepper extract if you could stand it to have it in your mouth and taste it. But essentially, by complexing it, you allow it to be more water soluble, which allows it to pass through the membranes even better. And it stabilizes, extends the release somewhat. So a lot of that's going to get into your bloodstream through your sublingual and buccal pathways. And you'll have to dose that out for yourself. Like I said, I haven't made any yet, but that's one of the methods I'll try. The injection methods are fairly straightforward. You avoid the heat, so any degradation that you might experience there, you avoid that. With the injection methods, what we're going to do is we're actually going to use an oil-based preparation. Now, I know that this is not oil-soluble. Oxytocin is soluble in ethanol, pure ethanol, corn alcohol, at 5 milligrams per milliliter. Well, you can buy a bottle of powder as 5 milligrams. So you take that 5 milligram powder and you add 1 milliliter of pure ethanol. I don't know if benzyl alcohol will work the same. I don't know. It's two different types of alcohol. So I would stick with what's recommended. And then you would add 4 milliliters of thick oil, like castor oil. And there's your mix. That's done. The only problem with that is you're going to have a pretty good little bee sting when you inject that. However, we're talking, let's see. So here's your entire shot at the dosing that I just is 0.2 milliliters. It's a minuscule amount. And out of that, 20%. So right about halfway up here. So tiny, tiny, tiny little amount. The injection method is pretty straightforward. We're going to use a thick oil, like castor oil, right? So we're going to have 4 milliliters of castor oil. Set that aside. We're going to take the 5 milligram bottle that they send you, and we're going to add to it, 1 milliliter of benzyl alcohol or ethanol. I don't know if benzyl alcohol work, but ethanol, pure corn ethanol, like, what is that stuff? Everclear. So 1 milliliter of pure corn ethanol will completely solubilize that 5 milligrams. Then we add in the 4 milliliters of castor oil and, gently mix, right? That's quite a bit of solvent, and it could sting. But like I say, your entire shot is only, on this dose, per day, 1 subcutaneous shot of 0.2 milliliters. So a minuscule amount, and out of that 0.2 milliliters, only 25%, so 0.05 milliliters. So a half of a tenth, So, well, you see what I'm saying. So it's just a tiny, tiny amount. So, again, maybe that'll sting worse than I think, but I don't think so. It's not a lot of alcohol. The other method, if you don't want it to sting and you don't have a problem with odd solvents, is you could use something like polyethylene glycol or DMSO. Again, people are pretty squeamish about these types. I don't use polyethylene glycol if I can help it, but DMSO is a little different. Some people are terrified of it. Some people think it doesn't do much harm at all. I'm kind of in the middle. I've used it previously for transdermal applications and experimentation, and I've never had any issues from it. That doesn't mean it didn't cause any problems. But after thinking about it and doing some other research with a different product I was trying it with a couple years ago, I realized that for these tiny little shots, because the shot and the proportions would end up being the same, again, you've got a very small amount of DMSO going into your system. And if you even just rub that on your skin for arthritis, you'd get more in your system than what you'd get from that shot. Again, I just demonstrated the same type of thing. The shot would be the same size, and out of that, the DMSO would be tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. So, personal call. That's probably the way that I'll go, just because I'm used to it and I know it won't hurt. But what that formula is for that preparation is, once again, we've got 5 milligrams in the container, and we're going to inject into that container directly, half of a 0.4, less than half of a milliliter of DMSO, and then 0.05 milliliters. You could just go up to 0.01 if you want, but 0.05, tiny amount of benzyl alcohol, and then the balance, which would be essentially 4.5-ish, 4 to 4.5-ish milliliters of castor oil. That should yield the same dosing and everything without so much pip. So this is all just theory. This is all just educational. This is all just informational. I'm studying this myself, and I thought I would share what I found so far. I know I ran a little long, and I meant to make it a little more entertaining, but this is here where I dump these ideas. So hope you got something good out of it, and stay tuned because I'll do a breakdown after I make my own and try it, and we'll find out what it does.